Hey everybody, welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast. Today we are talking about demystifying AI. So if that's something you're interested, stick around. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the slightly unhinged marketing podcast for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, also known as the Pixel Wizard, and my goal is to tackle the tough stuff that goes in behind the scenes in marketing and offer actionable tips, creative insights, and a little bit of humor to spark some creativity. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. Hi guys, welcome back. So today I have my regular podcast partner here, Shari, again, and we are talking about AI. So Shari, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was a week ago. I can't even remember. And you actually recommended making this a podcast episode. So here we are. Yeah, what are your initial thoughts on this topic?
We were talking about it, and AI is like such a huge topic right now, but something that I don't hear at all is the feelings around it. We do talk about, I don't know how to use it, it's confusing, but it's that stigma of, oh, you used AI on this, or when we're building websites, so you're not going to write a blog with AI, are you? Or you're not going to build this website with AI, and it's why not? And I get the reasons because a lot of people are quick to use it and don't really
Mhm.
use it properly, but that's not to say that using AI is bad in any way.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing because I've noticed the same kind of reaction from people. And it was actually a little bit ago, I was interviewing a copywriter and this came up and it started that thought in my brain because I was talking to her and one of the questions I asked was, how do you use AI in your process? And she was so just, oh, I would never, like, no AIs used. Don't worry. Everything's gonna be written by me. Everything is human made. And at the time, I was like, oh, okay. And she definitely thought that was a big positive, which it is in some senses, right? Like we want to make sure that she was trying to portray that she's doing quality work, which I appreciated. But at the same time, I was like, but you could use AI to your benefit. Like you could make yourself better with AI. So the fact that she was like, I would never do it, I was like, that's an interesting way to talk about it. Because if she had said, oh, I use AI to come up with content ideas, and then I take that and I work out an outline and like talk me through how she used it, that would have also been like really good for me. I would have thought that was really good. So she just got me thinking about this. And then there's been other instances along the way where people have said similar things, or they're like, I don't want my boss to know that I use AI, or don't tell anyone I use AI to write social captions. And it's kind of funny, like, why is that looked at as a negative? Especially with the way that technology always is changing. We're always trying new things. So wouldn't that be something that's celebrated?
I don't think for the most part technology is celebrated until the majority of the people who have adopted, and suddenly as a group we get brainwashed and we're like, oh no, I've always used it.
Yeah, once it becomes like a day in part of your daily operations, which I feel like is coming. Like we're gonna be using AI in our everyday life if you're not already, definitely this year, next year. So I'm interested to see how that stigma changes, but I think one of the ways that we can change it and push forward into like new innovations is to talk about it.
Is to use it. And it's, I think a lot more people use it than they say. If we can just take that first step to being like, hey, it's okay that you use AI. It's not okay that you use AI incorrectly, but it's totally okay. And it goes back to, like you had mentioned, Googling something used to be, oh, my age. I used to remember when people were like, oh, you probably Googled that. And it was so looked down upon. It's actually funny, total tangent. But I used to work for Ask Jeeves, and I don't know if anyone listening is old enough, but Ask Jeeves used to be like a manned Google. Like I would, after school or whatever, hop onto my computer and I would go onto a browser and people would text in questions and I would type the answer. So I was Google. And then Google came to be and everyone use Google now. So if you don't know how to use Google, you're just like, why didn't you Google it? So you go from don't Google to seriously, how do you not know how to, why are you asking me? You don't know what Google is?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's so funny. I remember Ask Jeeves. I remember typing in there. I never answered anybody's questions, but I definitely would look for answers there. It's so funny how those things just leave too. Like I haven't thought about Ask Jeeves in ages.
Seriously, it's funny. Ask Jeeves was like such a big thing, but no one remembers it, and now it's all
Mhm.
Google. But I look at ChatGPT, and I personally, I wonder if ChatGPT is going to be like Ask Jeeves because it's going to manifest into all of these other things and be specialized, and we forget that's how it all started.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people in general are just not really good at looking back
Mhm.
and seeing where all we've come. I know I'm not always good at that. So that was one of the things when we were talking earlier was you gave me a whole history lesson on AI, which was really interesting. And so I want to give you that opportunity to tell everyone else that too. Excuse me. But it was really interesting because we're not great at looking back. As nostalgic as I am and how like sentimental I am, I do not look back at like where we've come and how things come to be. So I want to give you like the next section just to talk all about your history lesson and just say whatever because it was super interesting last time.
And it wasn't necessarily about AI. We were talking about demystifying the use of AI and where AI has in the future. And I was saying to you, like, I always think it's funny when technology or innovation helps people be faster and more efficient. There's always this resilience and is looked upon as poor quality. And I made this joke about back in the prairie days, you would sit outside on your porch with like your bonnet, because only women did it. This isn't sexist, this is facts. But you would sit in your porch and you would just churn butter all day. And that was the whole thing. And now, like, you go to the grocery store, I Instacart my butter. So I don't even go there. And that was an invention of the Industrial Revolution. When the Industrial Revolution came to be, all of the manual labors and things that we did were eradicated. Instead of walking, you had cars. Instead of sitting there and crafting a chair, you had a conveyor belt of people doing a specific thing. So labor became incredibly efficient and it completely changed. And but when it first started, there was a stigma of, oh, you bought that, like you didn't make it, you know what I mean? So now take a look at your house. How much of that did you make? So we've come a long way, and that's how I look at AI. Right now, we're at the first factory was open. That woman is sitting in her patio churning that butter, judging you. And you're dumb. Like you don't make your own butter. This is crazy. And AI is doing that for us intellectually instead of the way that the Industrial Revolution helped us be more efficient in terms of like labor and manual labor and building things. AI is going to help us think faster, be more efficient. And soon, whether you find this scary or not, AI is going to think for you. And soon, our children are going to be like, oh my God, you sat there and thought about it yourself. That must have been terrible. And that, all joking aside, I'm pretty confident in that.
Mm-mm. Yeah. It's funny too, that's a tangent, but I was watching TikTok the other day and now there's a whole like trend about people that are back making their own butter and they're like, this is how you do it. It's so funny. But how things just loop around. But yeah, I never thought about it, I guess, that deeply about how the history of life just is and our like quest to automate and enhance things repeats itself.
Everybody looks at me. I think it's no secret that I love technology. I love innovation. So they assume that I don't look back and I think things are like, oh, that's old. That's not how I am whatsoever. I think the reason why I get really excited about innovation and changes is because I see history repeating itself. So I have that confidence of, oh, this is happening again. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think the fear of growth has always also been the same. Like you said, like with Google and all these other apps, like anytime something's changing, there is a sense of fear with it. People don't love that. So I think that it takes a minute to catch on and then that it becomes like, wow, you're weird that you didn't do that earlier. But with AI, it's so different, at least for me, it's so different than what previous innovations have looked like because it's such a blank slate. Like you just literally ask it anything. And so it's like putting that in front of me. It's how do I just ask it everything? You know what I mean? So I'm sure that other people have that same sort of feeling. It's so much that there's so much possibility that you're like paralyzed by it, which I think is a totally natural human response to some of these changes.
Yeah, but if you think about it, how's that different from Google? I remember typing in like that bar, I can ask it anything. But it's funny because before, when you used to Google, it would sometimes send you to links where you're like, that's not what I asked. So you learn to ask it differently. There are certain things where you're like, type into Google, and people who know are like, don't type that into Google.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's also, I think, a trend on TikTok. Do not Google this.
Do not Google this. But AI is the exact same thing, right? And funny enough, now that we have AI, there are still people who are like, can you Google this? My husband, my speed smart engineering husband, sometimes I'll be like, can you Google this for me? And he'll Google, oh, it didn't come up with anything. I'm like, interesting. So you're trying to tell me that Google did not come up with what kind of red was Elmo? Google just doesn't know. And it's because like he
The
still
result.
learned how to Google. But
That's
I
so
think
funny.
that's the same with AI. It's just, some people will adopt it and learn how to AIs like they learned how to Google, and other people are just going to be like, don't know,
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think my theory is that the people who do adopt it are going to start outperforming, outranking those people, and they're going to get left behind. So it is super important that we just continually talk about it and try to understand it more. I think because it's still new enough, everybody has a chance to still be on top of it and to not be left behind. So I want to make that as simple as possible. However, with the way AI is, you can literally ask it to teach you about itself. So that's a kind of a different thing because with Google, I can Google, how do you Google something? And there may be an article that someone else has written about Googling something, but you already have to know the thing, right? Like you can't really learn that way.
Yeah.
So with AI, and I did an episode on AI a little bit ago about how to use it and like ways that I use it. But it's really about first you ask it the questions, you train it what you want it to tell you or how you want it to tell you that, and then you get something back and edit it. So it's a very iterative process, but it's uniquely good at realizing your patterns and the way that you want information like told to you, which is very unique. However, I think that it does require some knowledge in order to make that successful for you, for it to actually work in the way that you want it to.
Yeah. And I guess I've been playing with AI for a year and a couple of months now, like truly just every single day. And unlike Google and churning butter and anything else, I find AI to be incredibly easy to use because, like you said, it teaches me. And the only difference is I'm a very curious person, but I'm also curious when AI tells me something, I'm like, why did you say that? How did you come up with that? Is there something? So it's very much like a toddler sometimes where I'm like, why? How? And the more you dig deep, the more it tells you the truth. And that's with AI, it's your friend. When you ask, how did your day go? I was like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, okay, what did you do? I went to
Sure.
this coffee. And the more questions you ask, you're like, oh, so it wasn't fine. It was the worst day of your life. So AI is the same thing. It gives you what you put into it, and you just have to have curiosity and patience in order to use it. But you really don't like, we're in this time in history where, like I was telling you, there may be a handful of true AI experts. Those people are not making TikToks. Those people are not having webinars. So really, we are right now, as it stands, in an even playing field. You have this cool, neat toy that pretty much is a self-serve, and the more effort you put into it, the more you'll learn. I think it's great to ask other people, like, how do you use it? What are your prompts? But in this moment in time, I don't think there's anybody that's way ahead of anybody else, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you hear someone that says that they have mastered Chat GPT and you should give them hundreds of dollars to learn their prompts. Don't do that. It's not, you can literally ask Chat GPT, give me the best prompt to do this, and it will tell you the same thing. So yeah, there's definitely people that are like trying to exploit it. But I think the biggest thing that I learned that kind of changed my relationship with Chat GPT was to ask it, hey, what info do you need from me to do this task? What did I forget to give you? Or what else would help you give me a better response if I didn't like what it gave me or whatever? And it shoots out all these questions. And when you start analyzing all the questions that it asked you, you can actually start giving it better prompts because, oh, I know it's going to need this thing, or, oh, it always tells me that I forget this or whatever. So you are also learning while the AI is learning. But you have to put your mind in that mindset to be able to do it that way next time.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So, I wanted to talk to you about, because I was always a little bit confused about this. So I use ChatGPT all the time, and there's a bunch of other AIs out there, some that are specific to certain tasks or whatever, but then there's also all these AI like widgets in all of our programs. And one of the things that, like I said, that I learned about ChatGPT that changed my relationship was it was being able to teach it and to have it learn, and to that like back and forth made it so that I could really use it more effectively. But then I get into these other tools and there's an AI everywhere now, and that's not a feature. Like it's not really how you do it. So I'm never quite sure, is this going to give me a good outcome? Is what it's telling me good? Is it true? I feel like I need to check it. And because I had that, I feel like probably other people have that as well. And even maybe with ChatGPT, they're like, I don't know how good this response is. So I wanted to shoot that back to you. How do you think about that? And what are your thoughts about using these other platforms or widgets or whatever?
And this is where getting back into the origin story of ChatGPT is really important to understand. Is before ChatGPT, Open AI built it on a program called Dolly, and Dolly is at the core of ChatGPT, is the thinking process behind that. But in order to make it easier and more palatable to the general public, ChatGPT was created. And ChatGPT is like a layer over Dolly, where it's just like a general filter of open house or open house. I always say open house. They named their company on purpose. I know it. But OpenAI built ChatGPT so that it can answer pretty much any questions without having to understand code, without having to understand the way that these computer process, because they're not reading your words, they're reading the code behind those words. Which is why there was like that TikTok trend when they asked ChatGPT how many R's are in strawberry, and they're like 17. And there was no way for it to understand how many R's because they're not reading your letters. They're reading like the code behind it with all of that internet. And that's all to say, when you look at other apps like Claude or Perplexity or Notebook LM, they're all building it on either ChatGPT itself. So sometimes there's a filter. When you're looking at ChatGPT, it's a layer on top of Dolly. And then when you look at Perplexity, truthfully, I don't know how Perplexity was built. I never actually looked into it, but I suspect that Perplexity is actually a filter of Dolly, of ChatGPT on Dolly, and on top of that. So there's different layers. And what those layers do is, one, it dilutes the power of it, but also you give up the power for focus, right? So you have to determine if you want to do something very specialized, then you're going to need to look for enough filters to get ChatGPT or Dolly to focus on what you're hoping to do. A good example is whenever I try to do research papers or do like a case study with ChatGPT, it works well until it doesn't, because ChatGPT has one filter and it like has so many rabbit holes that it can go down from. And I am also a rabbit hole goer. So when I'm trying to do research or case studies or examine a certain data set and I use ChatGPT, what I find is I start off with this real estate industry. What I'm seeing is that website traffic is going up, but the leads are going down, but the quality is better. Let's talk about it. And I'm researching, and ChatGPT goes, speaking about leads, have you heard that like they have found in chocolate there's like lead, and Ghirardelli is the only, and I don't know how I freaking got there. But ChatGPT isn't going to freaking stop me because it has the whole internet to like access, and it wants to make me happy. So the minute I go left, it's, yeah, let's do this. Let's go left.
Mhm.
So it's horrible. So I actually had to pay for Perplexity, because when I'm in Perplexity and I'm doing research and I happen to accidentally type something that kind of goes outside of that, it doesn't go there. It like pulls me back and say and gives me additional data based on the research that I'm doing, and it won't go outside of that. So whenever I'm trying to examine something like, why is the web traffic going up, but then the lead quality is going down, and I'm like, that's very specific. I'm going to go to Perplexity. It's worth the $20 a month for me to not spend the next 3 hours trying to figure out why the legalities of chocolate and metal. So I say this all to say it's all the same thing at the end, but you just have to understand how much of a filter do you need in order to accomplish the things that you need. You'll find that ChatGPT can actually also create image. It can also create Excel, but the issue is it's not going to create it well, because it will also pull rabbit holes in, and you're like, that's not what I asked. It's just, how much do you want to focus on the project that you want to focus on? And I guess the next question is going to be, how do I know what app to use in order to focus? Ask ChatGPT. It will tell you.
Okay, so and I also like want to reiterate what I'm hearing too is in these specific apps, we use HubSpot and they have their AI in there. That AI is specialized for whatever that task it's offering to do,
Mhm.
right? Emails or whatever. So it's like not, it never goes off track. So it's like an expert basically in this one task.
Yes. But that's also an interesting point too. So the AI that sits in your HubSpot, it's evaluating everything. So it has a base knowledge that HubSpot built into it, but it's also evaluating your leads, your emails, your dashboards. So if you're going to ask it a more global question like, what's the best dashboard to use for A, B, C, and D, it's not going to be able to answer you, because the information that it has to work is in your account. And if you don't have that and you ask it, it's going to be like, I don't know. Unless it has the base knowledge base that HubSpot built in, where would it go? It's in the little fish tank. It's an expert in this fish tank, more so than ChatGPT. If you put ChatGPT in that fish tank, it's going to jump out and be like, what about here? And what about this? So it just really depends on how much you want to focus. But also, if your fish tank has nothing, then your AI has nothing.
Yeah. And now do all kind of widgets work that way? Because I see them in all of the programs. So they're looking at just your info, or is it a choice that they get to make when they're building that? And how would you know what type of thing you're working with?
I would ask, this is where you would ask the company that you're working with, like, what type of AI are you using? What parameters have you put on it? And I think when you have something specialized like HubSpot or Salesforce or anything, you have to realize that they want to keep the information that they own, because if they allow their AI to go outside of their platform and grab the data, then they can no longer control it as a company.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So basically asking those companies, and then also you had said asking ChatGPT, "Hey, I'm trying to do this thing." Or maybe can I have never tried this. Like maybe ChatGPT can also evaluate different tools for you as well to give you
Mhm.
insight onto is that something that would be a good fit for what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's definitely not knowing all the history behind something. Like it does help like to know because that's always confused me. And I've always just assumed that's like a watered down version in the app. Like I don't want that. I want to go to the source. But
Mhm.
anyways, we've gone a little bit unhinged. So I want to pull us back a tiny bit because we're talking about the biases and stigmas around AI use. So
Mhm.
understanding the history and how it works is definitely something that helps break that down. But I do think there's some other things like the fact that people feel that AI is cheating is something that I want to talk about because I don't personally think that it means that you're cheating. I think that there are ways that you can use it badly where it's going to give you a really obvious result, right? I have read Instagram, like LinkedIn posts where I'm like, oh my God, they took that right out of a brand new channel and put that on there. And you can just tell it feels very robotic to read. And I have had that reaction. It's like they put no effort in.
Mm.
But I think if you're using it correctly, and you're using it as a tool and not as a replacement for yourself or any effort on your side, then it can be just that. It's a tool, it's an enhancement. So I'm sure you have feelings about this as well. Tell me what you think about the whole like using AI is cheating and like it should be looked down on for that.
I have many thoughts on that actual particular topic. One is I think the reaction is just because it's new and it's different and that's normal. But the other reaction I feel is a little bit gatekeepy up until this very moment in history. And I think if we all sit down and think about it, is there's like a social economical issue in terms of access. You, depending on where you are financially, socially, regionally, you have access to certain things, like certain information. Information is worth more than gold, in my opinion. And like gold, people hoard it. You have to have money to go to college. And you're like, well, you can have sponsorships or scholarships and all of that. But I'm like, guess what? You also have to have education and access to even apply to these scholarships. You have to know these scholarships exist. So, like, lack of knowledge really prevents people from elevating themselves, regardless of how talented they are, how intelligent they are, how curious they are. And for AI, you've known me for a while. I've always been giddy about AI. One is because I'm giddy about anything that's new. But two, I see the like social impact that AI has now. Now, obviously, you still need a computer, you still need an internet, you still need running water, but AI opens up access much more than it has before because now, as long as you have a computer, as long as you have internet, you can go on ChatGPT and you have the world at your fingertips. And this idea of you're cheating, yeah, I would agree. You are cheating. You're cheating your social economic standing. You're cheating the things that have kept you from your true talent. So if you're intelligent, and I don't mean educated, if you are intelligent and curious and motivated, ChatGPT is the equalizer. It
Mhm.
now gives you all the information you need to succeed. And when I see someone saying, oh, you use ChatGPT, best case, you're afraid of something new. Worst case, you're trying to keep someone else down. So I would argue that it's bad for someone to keep someone down because they know that it is an equalizer. It's worse if that person is you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just say, just do it. Just
Yeah.
open that browser. It's pretty simple. It looks like a little notepad and just start talking to us. Hi, I'm sure that's funny because November of last year, I opened up ChatGPT. It was still free. You couldn't pay for it. And I'm like, hi, I'm Sherry, and I am so excited you're here. Here are all the reasons why. And that's how it started. I wasn't like researching prompts. I wasn't like, I
Mhm.
just talked to it. And
Yeah.
that's where I think you should start. And the stigma, I think that the stigma of something new will go away. It will be replaced with the realization that a lot of our jobs are in jeopardy because we have had the luxury of having gone to a good college, having an internship that was valuable. But now it opens up to somebody who's hungry or who's more curious, who's willing to work harder. And that eliminates a lot of obstacles for people. Or for someone who has had the education, who has had the access, but is also hungry, is also curious, this amplifies your skill. And I don't even want to know where that's going to take you.
Yeah. I think it's the mind shift change, right? To take it to be like, this is a teacher for me. What if you just took your writing, you wrote a blog or you wrote a social post, put it in and said, evaluate this, tell me how I could be better. Now are learning from the AI. And that's something that even in school, when you're in college, like you don't get a lot of that feedback a lot of times. Like your paper gets graded and you're like, awesome, and you leave, right? But now we actually can learn in little tidbits. I found that that's the way I learn best. Like I get a little bit here, I get a little bit there, it percolates in my brain, I go try it. And then I actually remember these things that I learn. So asking it to really be the teacher is such a game changer. And it really does open up so many opportunities. But I love what you said, like you have to be curious for that to work. I think that's totally key to anything with AI. You have to be curious and not afraid of it in order to get better at it.
For sure. This is where imagination and curiosity is going to really be rewarded. And that's great for me because my imagination and curiosity hasn't been such a great tool for me up until this point.
Yes, you have to direct it correctly. But yeah, it does. It really does. And yeah, I think we have to break out of the very initial things that they said, oh, AI can do for you. For whatever reason, I always think of making meal plans. That was the first thing that I did. And now I still hear people talking about that. You're like, you have to think of new ways. And we didn't start talking about the two of us. We didn't start talking about AI until, I don't know, 6 months ago. But like I started using it right away. And it's funny because I did the same thing that you did. I like started talking to it as if it was like a robot. I was like, hi, what can I do? And this is who I am. Like, what can you help me with? And just having a conversation because it's a chat, right? Like in my mind, I was like, it was a chat. And so I just talked to it like anything else I would chat with. But now I say treat it like a person because the more you think of it as a robot, the less you're able to teach it. So it's a two-way street, right? If you think of it as a person, you can say, okay, you evaluated that for me. Thank you. But I'd like you to give me this answer in this way. Or can you just format that into a table for me? Because that's how I like to see it. And then it remembers and it starts doing that. So the conversation piece is important.
I'll be perfectly honest. When I first started with ChatGPT, I did speak to it. Hi, I'm Sherry, but I spoke to it like I was a human, but I still thought of it as a bot. And that really held me back because I think that ChatGPT is this like brilliant, smart sidekick. I would say stuff like, write me a blog about so and so in my voice. Thanks. That's literally all I would
Yeah.
say. And then it would crank out something. And I'm like, this is terrible. Like, why? It did sound like me in that it used words that I would say, but it was too perky. I'm like, I'm not that energetic. Stop.
I'm not happy.
But I started to shift my mindset and say, okay, let's pretend that I just got an intern that is exactly like me. She thinks like me, she looks like me, she acts like me, but she's just super smart and has access to all the knowledge of humankind. Really, I'm not going to tell intern Sherry, hey, write me a blog about so and give her 2 sentences. No, as a human, I'd be like, hey, so I want to write a blog. This is the reason. I would have a full-on conversation with my intern. And then I would say, does that make sense? Could you write me a little sample so that I can read it before you continue? I don't want you to waste your time. And I would do that. So when I started treating ChatGPT, like you said, like a human being and slowing all the way down and actually talking to this interface like a person that's going to do me the honor of doing this thing that I don't want to do, the product came out great. And I shared with you some of the work that I cranked out because I started doing that. I would say the information is far better than it used to be when I would give you stuff and you're like, Georgie wrote that. And I'm like, yes, she did. Because I didn't give it enough information because I did treat it like an all-powerful bot. It's not. You still have to talk to it. You still have to tell it the nuances of what you want. AI will never, AI right now cannot read your mind.
People like, I don't want to say what will happen in the future.
I don't want to make assumptions. It may. Memory is being logged by a computer as we speak. So I'm like, it might. We don't know.
That's so funny. You were the one that first told me that you named your chat GPT. So you just said Georgie, that's her GPT's name, which I thought was so cool because it put me in that mindset of this is a person. So like I
Mhm.
named mine Donna because after Suits, because she's the best assistant in the entire
Oh,
world. So mine's Donna. But yeah, like it's a conversation, it's iterative and asking it to teach you. I think those are all like the biggest takeaways anytime I talk to anybody, that's what I want them to know is if you do those things, you're going to be able to continually get better. And of course, as it grows, like there's going to be new things, but that's right now my general advice. But okay, so let me see here. So we talked about all of that. Let's talk about using it as like a shortcut or like to increase time or like increase our time in the day to decrease the time it takes to do actual tasks. It's funny because anytime I use ChatGPT and I'm like, okay, this task that was supposed to take me an hour took me 5 minutes. So now what? It's okay. Do we send it to the client and be like, oh, it's done? Right? Because yes, I've put in my expertise. I've put in I've not just taken it directly out, but still the amount of time that it took probably wasn't actually 5 minutes. The time that it took that it was supposed to be, like if I had done all of these steps from my brain, was a lot longer. So we don't want to appear superhuman in the fact that now I could get done so much more. What do we do? Do we go take a coffee break? You're like, ChatGPT sponsored this coffee break. Or do you feel like it's something that we just need to be talking about more? Be like, hey, I got this done because I was able to, especially like when you're talking to your boss, right? Internally, you're talking to your boss, hey, I got this done really fast because I found this prompt. Do you talk about it? Do you not? What do you think the outcome's going to be either way?
I love and hate that you gave me this question because I'm going to answer it truthfully and honestly. I think we humans have a huge problem with prioritizing ourselves and setting proper boundaries. I hear that every day. I'm so busy. I'm so tired. Americans are getting sick because we have no time for ourselves. We don't have vacation. But when we're given what we need, and that's time for ourselves, time to slow down, time to enjoy life, we're like,
Mhm.
but that's wrong. And it's just, and I very rarely say this. When we go back to the churning butter, women for decades and centuries spent entire days sitting on their porch churning this butter.
Yeah.
And if you were to just pop a genie and say, hey, what if I gave you this little screen and you just like tick, butter and you just forget it and you have butter shipped to you, how would you feel? They would be like, that's insane. No, like it's that same mental leap. And what I say to that is if you know how to create a blog with ChatGPT in 5 minutes with the same quality and expertise and tone and everything that would have taken you 3 or 4 hours, take that 4 hours and 55 minutes and do something else that you also have to do that day. But if the result is you end your day at noon and you've done everything that you were supposed to, go take a nap,
Oh
drink
my God,
some
yeah, perfect.
water, play
Touch
with
some
your
grass.
dog, go smell roses, lay your
Yeah.
whole body on the grass and let the sun touch your face. Like, why is that such a bad thing? Like, we all agree, and you and I are in the women's circle. We all talk about we don't have time. Our kids are growing up and we have spent zero time with them. Marriages are breaking apart because we don't have time to gaze into each other's eyes. We don't have time to connect with our best friend. But now that we have this, we're in the precipice of winning our time back. We're like, no, that's wrong. Don't do that. And I'm over here. I hope y'all make a really great decision for yourselves because I know I will.
Yeah. I think some people have the ability to take that time back and some don't. Like we're very privileged. We can do that. And I would encourage like my team also, like if I found that my team was able to do that and they had finished all their tasks so quickly because of the use of AI, as long as the outcome is good, I'm like, great, take the time. But I know that not everybody has that outlook. Like not all bosses are going to feel that way. So
Well,
it's
the bosses, once the bosses get the chat GPT for themselves, I think eventually we will find other things that we can do. I'm a little flippant about the grass and the sun, which I do mean, But there's also a lot of things that we haven't accomplished. So the things that are important to us, like writing a blog or building a website or creating a sequence for lead nurtures or whatever that would take us forever. Now we can focus on the core of the things that are more important. Now, a company that it takes you 10 years to grow to a certain amount, now it takes you 3 years. Now that a lab, the medical industry is a good indicator as to what happens when AI takes over. I don't know if you've noticed Christina Aguilera's face, but this woman has gone from 40 years old to 29 years old. That is the use of AI, y'all.
Yeah, Lindsay Lohan too. She looks incredible.
Yeah, make no
Like,
mistake, that has to do with like innovation and AI. AI can now research way longer. You have a team of researchers sitting there Googling the shit out of their machines. Sorry to cuss, but their now research is a lot faster. Like all of this technology and innovation is going a lot faster. And I would like for us to get to a point to where we can take some time for ourselves. But if you really want to go down a rabbit hole and totally unhinge, I will remind you that in about 50 years, the human population at this rate is going to plummet down to way less people. With way less people, how are we going to do the things that we've done with less teammates? Like AI has come to the rescue of humanity and society. And whether or not everyone is on board, as long as a few of us are on board, we're going to be able to augment the missing people in our society and in humanity. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. Right now, there's like a small time in history where you can write that blog for 5 minutes and go touch some grass, but eventually we'll adapt. We'll find ways to spend our time in a more meaningful way. I don't think that it's a problem for me to not have to sit here for 16 hours trying to research something. I think it's a good thing that now it takes me 30 minutes so that I could take what I've learned and actually apply it. And instead of now we're not thinking about days, we're thinking about weeks, we're thinking about months, we're thinking about years compressed into a smaller time. So you're just going to achieve more things in a shorter period of time.
yeah.
Make
Well,
no
and that's
mistake,
what,
there'll be a few years where we're waiting for people to catch up. So people are like me, like we're going to goof around. I'm sorry. It's going to happen. I deserved it.
you totally do. But I think it's the benefits. It's thinking of that everything is faster now. Research is easier now. We can spend our time on things that are even more impactful. And that's what you have to do as a leader. Empower your team to use it so that they can get to that point. They have to practice, they have to learn how this works. So if you empower your team now, yes, they're going to be like, oh, this blog only took 5 minutes. Amazing. But as you start coaching them through that and be like, okay, so now we can do this other thing. You can do more training. You can enhance your skills somewhere else, leading your team rather than being like, don't look over there at ChatGPT, pretend that doesn't exist because you want to keep everything, how it is now, which is comfortable. Like you're actually cutting off your progress later on, and empowering your team now is only going to help you.
Mhm.
So I do think that for the employee that's wanting to use AI and has resistance from above, I think that it's important to highlight those things. Hey, yes, I use ChatGPT here because it allowed me to do all of this other stuff as well. Or look at how much better the process is, or look at how much better the overall product is at the end. And celebrating those things as wins, you can lead up and just show that in your organization.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept of things being faster. Instead of writing one blog in an hour, you can write 5, 10, 15, 20. But I hesitate to go that route because it's, I want AI to be the cursor that gives us our personal time back. I don't want it to be now you can work harder and faster and better and like that. I don't want to speak it. I know it will naturally happen, but I don't want to speak into it because that sucks. Like now you're having to be even more productive and even more. And I don't think as a race, we should try to focus on that. Think about going from Texas to Oregon back in the prairie days. Like that would take months, right?
Yeah, and you die of dysentery all the time.
Die in dysentery. But when we created a car and we can go there in 10, 12 hours, is there, did that hurt us in any way?
No.
No. It only made things better. And ChatGPT is no different. AI is no different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think that more of these conversations have to happen. And I think that people should be having these conversations in their organizations with their teams and just chatting through how you guys use it, how to better use it, what you feel like those impacts are. Does it stress your team out because now they have to create 3 times as much stuff? What's actually happening? Because those stigmas come from unsaid thoughts, unsaid feelings, and fear. So, in order to dispel that, you have to talk about it. And I don't hear a lot of it. I really don't hear that much talking about this type of thing. It's all, oh, I made this meal because I used ChatGPT to tell me what was in my fridge. Like, it's just not helping anybody.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right, we've already gone over time. But the non-optional, unhinged side thought that I had about this was about using AI in our everyday life. So we talked about it professionally and we talked about how we got started, but if predicting the future here, I feel like this is going to be integrated in our everyday life at home. It's going to be integrated for our children. And I just feel like it's inevitable. And I actually had thought of this a few weeks ago and it's been in my mind because around Christmas time, I realized that the ChatGPT app on your phone, you can do the voice thing. And it actually had a Santa voice. And you could talk to it and train it, and it would talk to you like Santa. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, why else would they put that in the app except for kids? And I was like, I wonder what more kids are using this. And because I am the way I am, I have had my kids talk to AI since when I did, just to see, because I think kids are always at the forefront of, they're not afraid of anything. Like, there's no kid in the world that's, I don't want to push that button. What is it going to do? Like, they want to do it
No,
all. Yes, they're like, let's push it 1,000 times. So I was interested to see, what does the young mind do? And my daughter, she loves to tell stories and make games. And so I've been encouraging her to do that with ChatGPT because like it will play with her and it will give her story back. And what if this happened? And you can see her imagination just growing. And I love that. And my kids have been they've had technology their whole life, but like they are just in love with their Alexa and they ask it all the time, everything. And so it was a natural thing for them. But I feel like kids in general are that way. So if you're predicting the future, how do you feel like this is gonna progress? And then we're gonna come back to this episode and we're gonna see it for right.
How's it going to progress? I really think it depends on what our generation decides in terms of giving our kids access, but something that's way more powerful than a quantum computer is our brains, right? But our brain is a computer that needs information in order to grow. And I will tell you, I also have a kid and I want her brain to grow, but I also don't love whys. Why is this? Why is that? And before I had
1,000 times a
a
day.
kid, I was like, I'm not going to be that mom. I'm not going to be the one that was like, stop it. But you don't know how hard it is until you've hit your 36th why of the day and you're done. You're like, don't talk to me. But where something like AI is going to definitely help is that it's never going to get tired of your kids' whys. It can ask why, or your child can ask why all day long, and AI will tell you. But that reality only exists if one, we as adults adopt it, understand it, and then put regulations on it. As much as
Mhm.
chat or AI will give our children information, as what information do we want to give our kids? I would argue that we want to give them everything that isn't going to traumatize them. But what is that? But if we get it right, we're about to raise a generation of kids who, we go back to the social economic issues of our society, they won't have that. Like, I shudder to think how many Beethovens have come and gone because they didn't have access. How many Van Goghs, how many Einsteins have just died in history, and there's no cure for cancer, there's no cure for Alzheimer's. All of the things that plagued us is because we have all of these amazing little minds that were never nurtured, never given an opportunity, never access, and now that's not a problem anymore. Like that to me is holy cow.
Yeah.
How far will we go? Dr. Zeus said. And through AI, that's as far as you let it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
predict
It's
that
unlimited, really.
it's unlimited. And I predict that our kids, yes, but our kids, I don't think the human race is going to be recognizable.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the kids are always the ones that kind of push things forward because they're not afraid. I remember very early when ChatGPT came out, one of my friends has an older son, and she was like, "My son just got in trouble at school because he used this app to write his whole essay. And now like he's in trouble and whatever." And I'm like, first of all, that's hilarious. I think good on that kid because that's funny. But no one even knew what it was. The teacher was just like, "I know you didn't instantly get smarter overnight. What happened?" But I think kids are going to adopt it quickly. I think that's proven with history. I also think that the more we integrate it in our personal lives, and I rag on the people that use it for meal plans, but honestly, that still is a time saver, right? Like, why not? Just don't stop there, okay? Use it for more.
Just use it
But
for
there are even like for people like you had mentioned, like elderly people and needing help with so many things and not understanding things, like that could be hugely impactful for them. And I think people we've been trying with like things like Alexa and like the Google, but even when my grandmother was alive, she had those apps and it's just or those little devices. It made her so frustrated. It never wants to do what I want it to do. I just want it to turn on the TV. And that wasn't a feature that it had. So it was like it couldn't do it. Whereas
yeah.
AI doesn't really tell you no as much. Like it wouldn't turn on your TV, but it will like answer questions, walk you through things, give you tutorials. Like how cool would it be to be able to have the grandma tutor chat GPT that just tells her how to check her email every single day because she forgot. Like that's cool.
Something like Alexa and Galaxy and all of that, we go back to the filters. It can only perform in the little spot or box that it's given, whereas AI, when done correctly, has the world at its fingertips. So there's no limitations. And for someone more than kids, for someone who's elderly, that process has more patience. It will go at the pace that person needs. It will give the information that it has. It will repeat itself as many times as it needs to. And more importantly, it's a safety issue. I think if you fall in and you can't get up, so long as your voice works, it's fine. So there's a lot of potential issues that AI has, but for me personally, I think the benefits far outweigh the negative, and the only thing that's stopping us is us at that point.
Yeah. 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 So really it's just be curious and keep using it, keep searching out this information. Like I said, I did a podcast episode with more like how-to information. So if you're interested in that, go back and listen to that. I think it's awesome. Maybe you will too. But I just want to give our final thoughts and our sign off. I think the biggest thing is the curiosity and thinking of AI as a tool to complement our creativity, to complement our judgment, and talk about it. Talk about what you're doing. Talk about it with your team. Talk about it with your boss. Just bring up the topics and let's start breaking down some of that fear and those stigmas that don't need to be around.
For sure.
Awesome. So, anything else to add before we end this extra long episode?
No, when it comes to AI, I would agree with Nike. Just do it.
Just do it. I love
Just
it.
do it.
No copyright infringement, but just do it. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for listening. I will see you in the next one. And if you have any further questions for Shari, she actually does really actually like to talk about this stuff. Hit her up on LinkedIn. I'm sure she'd love to have conversations, and me as well. I'm also on LinkedIn and in the comments. So we'll see you there. Thanks so much.